This is a fairly quick tutorial of your new Mac and of the operating system named OS X Monterey. This won't go over everything, but to keep it within a reasonable amount of time, I thought we could go over just a few things that you'll want access to as you are starting with your new Mac. Especially if you're a PC user or you've been a PC user your whole life, and the Mac is kind of a new operating system. If you used a Mac your whole life, then you already know all the stuff. You can go ahead and move on to something else in the Google Classroom. So I think the best place to start is kind of a little bit moving across this menu bar, but always starting with the Finder. The Finder will help you get anywhere you need. And if we go to File and a new Finder window, you'll notice that the upper right hand side will have a search bar, and you can search for any app, any file, any document that you have on your Mac, but you also have a sidebar, which is your favorite places. So I always have AirDrop open on my sidebar, which allows me to move files to anybody else with AirDrop open, the recent files I've been working on, my apps, my desktop, and you can just kind of see. The other thing that I always have open is I always have my iCloud Drive in my sidebar because I have so many of my files stored up in my iCloud Drive, and we're going to log you into or sign you into your iCloud Drive in just a few minutes. And so I thought one of the best things we could do is start by personalizing your device to get all the things that you want over here set up. And so to customize our Finder window, we're going to start by going to Finder, and then Preferences. Now the first tab that we see is General, and you can show all these items on the desktop. I just choose external disks, and then I'm actually going to turn this off because I haven't used that in forever. But new Finder windows show recents at the top, but you can choose any of these that you want. The one that I spend the most time on, the idea of what I want in my sidebar. You can just copy what I have, but give it some thought. Do you want to be able to access movies quickly over on the sidebar, or music, or your photos quickly, or your home? This is a good one to keep open in your sidebar as well. I'll let you go ahead and hit pause, and you decide what you want to keep on over there. I'm going to turn some stuff off real quick, and then you go ahead and pause and add what you want to your sidebar. So when we have a Finder window open, you'll see that your changes have been made, but you'll also notice that any window that you have open on your Mac, you'll have these three buttons. The red, like in just about any computer, is to close the window. It won't, if it's an application, it won't quit the application. It'll just close the window of that application. You can minimize the window with the yellow button, which will just throw it down into your dock, which we'll get to in just a second. And then the green button will put it into full screen, which I use quite a bit, but it doesn't just use full screen. To come out of that, I click Escape. I can also hover over that, and I have these options. So if you just click the green button, you have full screen, but you can also create a split screen view. So I can have my Finder app open in one side, and then say have Pages or Word or Docs or whatever, Chrome, over on the other side. It's a pretty great feature to have that split screen, and that is just under the green button. The other thing that I'm kind of missing that I'd like to have open is I like the idea of having this, the path bar and the status bar open. And that shows me, if I open up the desktop and I find a document, I can see exactly where that is stored by the path bar, and I can see exactly how much space I have left on my Mac and what I have selected here. And to show these things, if we go up to View, and then Show Path Bar is what yours will say. Mine says Hide, but I could hide it. And then, oops. Show Path Bar, and also Show Status Bar. I'd recommend opening those or having those turned on, but I'll leave that up to you. But the thing that I would really recommend having on is what is called stacks. When I click on my desktop, if you notice over here, I have some folders, and it looks like I just have some files. But what I really have is stacks of files. And so when I click on these stacks, here are all the documents that are on my desktop. And here are all the images that I have on my desktop. And what Stacks does is it organizes all of the things that you have on your desktop by item. And so PDF docs or movies or images are all organized over here by Stacks. So if I were to go to View and then click off of View Stacks, here's what my desktop would really look like. I would never let it look like this. I would obviously start deleting stuff, but Stacks allows me to be pretty lazy about that. So if I use Stacks, it'll say, oh, and then I'll be able to, I just need to see all the screenshots that I've taken, which are quite a few. I need to delete some of these, but Stacks allows me to keep a somewhat clean desktop, and it organizes all the things that I'm holding on my desktop. Part of the desktop that I want to show you is the dock. If you take a cursor to the bottom of the screen, you'll see all the apps that you have in your dock, and this is really just a place where you can keep the apps that you use the most. And it's a quick way to access those applications. And there's an easy way to add the applications you need the most to the dock. So let's start by opening a Finder window and then clicking on Applications over on your left-hand side. Let's say that I want to use the Chess app. I can easily click, hold, and drag the Chess app down into the dock. And there it is. And now I can use it. Now I can access it much more quickly. But if I don't want that app sitting down there, I can also click and move it until I see the remove sign pop up and make it go away. And let's take another app. So for example, a podcast, I can also click and hold. Choose options, remove from dock. And I could also take an app, click, hold, and drag it over to the trash and remove from dock that way. So there's 3 easy ways to remove it from the dock. Now that we're on the trash, if you click and hold on the trash, you can always empty it from there. Yep. There's that satisfying sound of emptying your trash. A lot of things will end up in there, whether you're putting them there physically or they just end up in there. So it's a good idea to be emptying your trash fairly regularly. The other thing I want to show you is beyond going to Finder and Applications, there's an easy way to find and organize your apps by clicking this on the Launchpad. So if you open up the Launchpad, you'll notice that this looks a little bit like your iPad or your iPhone or your Samsung. It organizes your apps in a way that looks similar to a mobile device. And not only does it look like your mobile device, it also acts a bit like your mobile device. So I can actually take something like voice memos, click and hold on it, and notice how they start to jiggle just like the iPhone. But I can start to create folders of apps. I can rename them. Click off them and click folders. I can also click and hold on the apps, and I can delete apps from there. And I don't really want to delete this app, but I can create folders, I can delete, and this is the Launchpad is just another way to access all of your apps, much like the Finder window. To do exactly what we just did in the Launchpad in the Finder app, I bring up a Finder window, go to Applications. I can't create folders in here, but I can certainly choose on an app and drag it down to the trash and delete it that way. To better personalize your your Mac even more, let's spend some time in System Preferences. There's 2 ways to get there. One, you can click on the Apple and go to System Preferences, or down in your dock, I imagine System Preferences, the gear is probably already sitting there. So once we open System Preferences, we're not going to spend a lot of time in here, just in a couple of places for you to get acquainted with it. And the first is right here. Now I'm already signed in, but JPS gives you your own managed Apple ID. And so wherever it says sign in to your ID, probably right over here, please click that and sign in using your @jpsny.org email account. and whatever password you set up when you first signed into your computer. So let's get you signed into that ID, because then we can get this, and if you have an iPad from the district, you can also sign into your iPad, and so those two devices will start talking. Also, Apple gives all teachers 200 gigs of free iCloud space, which is really helpful, because what will happen is we can back up your computer and back up your iPad to your district iCloud space, and so whenever you get a new device, or if something happens to your device and you need a new one, all of your settings and all of your files that you have backed up to the iCloud, you can just be handed a new device, set it up as the old device, and you're off and running. So the first thing would be to pause here and go ahead and set up your Apple ID. I'm going to keep going and then just start here in General. So once we open up General, there are a couple of things that you can see and you can do. So for example, if you prefer things like dark mode, which will switch your background to something like this. If you prefer that sometimes, like during the day, it's in light, and then as it becomes evening, it goes into dark mode, great. I just leave it in light. There you go. You can change accent color, the sidebar icon size. You can set this up however you want. When do you want to see the scroll bar? That's when you're scrolling through something like Safari or Chrome. And the other one that I always mess with is, I believe it defaults to Safari. So if you want Google Chrome to be your default web browser, then make sure to set that up. So take a look here and see if there's anything else that you'd like to change. Feel free to pause me if you have more to take a look at. To kind of personalize your iPad, you can change the desktop picture. I've chosen this one, and you can see Apple has a ton for you to choose from. You can download them. You can also choose if you have photos in your Photos app. You could change that, and then you can also change what your screensaver looks like. I have it set at this dynamic one. I believe it actually starts to write hello at some point as it goes into screensaver, and then decide how soon before you want your screensaver to turn on. Another place where we should go into is your security and privacy. So let's say that you've tried to download something online and it says first you have to change your security settings. You could click on security and privacy, and then you click the lock to make any changes to that. So sometimes it'll say right here, there's an app that got downloaded, but it didn't fully download until you click this. You put in your login credentials, the same login as your computer, when you sign into your computer, and that will let you in, and you can go ahead and change some of those. And that is including allowing different apps to have access to things like the camera, the Photos app, the microphone. So for example, Zoom needs access to your camera. So making sure that Zoom has access to that. And so if that doesn't automatically happen, you can come in here and change those settings. As we move throughout, we're gonna focus in on trackpad. Now, this is a great place for you to spend some time, because there is a lot of differences between a Mac trackpad and a lot of PC trackpad. So the idea let's just start with point and click. This one, when you press down on your trackpad, you'll notice that there is not only an individual click, the first click, but it actually feels like two clicks, and that's on purpose. So if you want, you can click on things once, and that highlights it. I can click a second time, and then sometimes the options will pop up. Also, there is a two-finger click. A two-finger click on your Mac is the same as a right click. So when I click on this folder over here with two fingers, now I have all these options, and that right click works throughout. So it's worth looking around and setting this up so it suits you. We want this device to be personal to you as much as possible. So setting up your scroll and zoom. Do you want to pinch to zoom in and pinch to zoom out? Double tap with two fingers, rotate with your fingers to rotate an image or things on your screen. And then here are some more gestures. So these are really good to get used to and at least make yourself aware of, because you could be navigating your Mac and something will happen, and you'll wonder why. Well, what just happened right there? And so I have it set up in here there's a three-finger swipe where I can see all of my apps, and then three fingers where I can go in between the different screens I have set up. So there's a lot to venture through here, and it's worth your time to set this up so it works just for you. Here is, I think we should end on this one. Yes, so on displays. Now, when you plug into your projector, it will register that you have two displays. And I don't have two displays set up right now on this computer, but one of the things that will show up when you have plugged into your projector is it'll be right in here somewhere. It'll say like display settings, and then it'll allow you to mirror the display you have or actually create a second display with your projector. And so on Wednesday when we are talking about this, if you have a question about this, please pull me over, because one thing a lot of teachers will do is they will have they won't mirror this display. Instead, they'll set up their projector as a second display so they can put something like a movie up on their projector and then still be doing some work over here on their main screen, and their students don't see it. There's lots of reasons for second displays. Obviously, if you bring in your own second screen and things like that. But displays is a big place for you to spend some time and make sure you understand what you're looking at. Make sure you have the ability to have not just a mirror display so you can show kids what you have on your up on the projector, what you have on your screen, but also creating a second display so you can put things up there while still being able to work on your main screen. Okay, that's a real quick and dirty walkthrough for system preferences. Please take some time and go through this and start to personalize your computer so it's working best for you, especially with that trackpad. Thanks. Okay, a few more just random things to finish off this Mac tutorial. And that is, earlier we kind of hit on the idea of full screen, but what we didn't talk about is what happens when when we put up in full screen. And so when I'm in full screen, I can still access kind of the menu bar, and I can hit the green button again to get myself out of full screen. But what happens when I exit full screen is it actually creates a whole new screen. And so here, let me show you what I mean by this. If I take 3 fingers on my Mac trackpad and swipe from left to right, it brings up my desktop again. And what you notice is that now we have 2 different screens going. So I can come back here to my desktop and do some work and swipe from right to left and get back to that full screen. So let's pull out of that. And then let me show you, you can have just about as many desktops as you want. Well, not as many as you want, but you can have quite a few desktops going. And so let me show you. If I take 3 fingers on my trackpad and swipe up, notice up here it says desktop, but I can also go over here to the right-hand side and create some other desktops. And so when I have my first desktop open, again, 3-finger swipe, I can move through. So let's say I have my set 1 work going on here, or whatever that is, and then I have my PLC things that I was working on sitting over here, and then you name it over here. We can have all of these desktops going at the same time. And so maybe this is in full screen in desktop 1, and you have something else going on desktop 2. So just using that 3-finger swipe, we can kind of have lots of desktops and lots of things going on. So a lot of people say that they really need to have a second monitor with them, but you can have multiple monitors going, and it's just a 3-finger swipe to go ahead and have almost like second monitors going. And then you'll notice that when I hover over desktop 2, I can get rid of that, and desktop 3, and I can get rid of that, and then it just pulls up. So you can have lots of things going on your Mac, and sometimes that's not a great thing because you might get lost, but it's worth knowing about, and I use it quite often. The other thing that I want to point out is, as we kind of worked our way across some fairly important things over here, up here what I think is worth noticing are a couple of things, and one is the spotlight search. If you hit the spotlight search, and it'll bring up the search bar, it will search your entire computer, much like the Finder window will. Search your entire computer for whatever it is you're looking for. So if I type in teacher, and then I start looking, so here are all my folders and my keynotes and things like that for new teacher orientation. It's a great tool to be finding things, to help you find things. on your Mac, especially if you're like me and you start to make folders, but then kind of just get lost. Another thing that's worth checking out is if you have things like this is your control center. If you want to change things like your display, and you can also go back into system preferences and change these things. Your keyboard brightness. Focus deals with if you want to kind of turn on do not disturb or not have notifications pop up. That's all built into there. And screen mirroring, you probably won't use a ton for Mac, but we have a couple of TVs throughout the district that have an Apple TV on the back that will allow you to display this wirelessly up onto those Apple TVs. And then finally up here we have Siri. If you feel like using Siri, absolutely you can use that. Okay, the last kind of random thing that I find is super useful when we have something like a Finder window open and you're looking for, you have a bunch of files that you want to select. So let's type in new teacher again. And I know that I want this and this and this, all of these things to move into one folder out here on my desktop. If I choose one, I have a couple of options. What I want to do is multi-select these things. I can press down the command button and then choose random ones. So they don't choose them all at the same time, but that's a multiple select, and I can click and drag them wherever I want. The other thing you can do is a shift select. So I choose the first one and then go down to the bottom, click shift, and then select and choose them all. And we can move a lot of documents that way. Again, it's kind of a random thing, but it's a huge time saver when you're working on your Mac. So this has been a really swift overview. I hope you got some new things out of it. Again, you should always contact Jeff or contact myself, and we'll walk you through any of these things when you're struggling working on your Mac. Okay, thanks.